So, today we're diving into a really unique institution in Pakistan called FOSPAH. It's an organization built from the ground up to deliver a very specific kind of justice, and to do it in a way that's fast, free, and accessible to everyone. But to really get why FOSPAH is such a big deal, let's just start with that question. I mean, it's something societies all over the world struggle with, right? What if getting a fair hearing wasn't this long, expensive, and super complicated process? What if you could actually get a real, binding legal decision without all the usual barriers standing in your way? Well, in Pakistan, one of the answers to that question is FOSPAH. Now, that's a bit of a mouthful. It stands for the Federal Ombudsman Secretariat for Protection Against Harassment. You can think of it as an independent body that acts a lot like a court. That's the quasi-judicial part. But it's set up with one clear goal: to make sure people have a safe working environment. All right, so that brings us to our first section: a problem, a solution. We're going to look at exactly how FOSPAH was designed to tackle the common hurdles you'd find in a more traditional justice system. And when you put them side by side, the difference is just stark. Traditional courts, they can be super costly. They're often slow, and they handle everything under the sun, which can be pretty overwhelming. FOSPAH, on the other hand, is totally free for the person filing the complaint. It's built for speed, to be expedited. And it's highly specialized, focusing squarely on harassment and, as we'll see, women's property rights. It's like they identified the three biggest roadblocks to justice: money, time, and complexity, and just got rid of them. Okay, so that's the principle, but how does it all work in the real world? Let's walk through the actual step-by-step process of how FOSPAH gets to a decision. The whole process is actually remarkably straightforward. First, someone files a complaint directly. There are no complicated legal hoops you have to jump through. Second, FOSPAH investigates, and they make sure to hear from both sides to keep it fair. Third, the Ombudsperson, who's the head of the whole thing, issues a legally binding order. And finally, if one of the parties doesn't agree with the outcome, there's a clear appeals process that goes directly to the President of Pakistan. It's just a clean, transparent path to a decision. So, what kinds of cases does this streamlined process actually cover? Well, its original job was to tackle workplace harassment, but its power has grown a lot since then. Now it also handles cases of gender-based discrimination, and this is a huge one: it has the authority to enforce women's property rights in the Islamabad Capital Territory. And that growth is a really critical part of the FOSPAH story. This is not some static institution that's stuck in time. Its mandate has expanded in a major way over the years, evolving from a pretty narrow focus to offering much, much broader protections for way more people. You can see that whole evolution right here. It started back in 2010 with a single mission: fight workplace harassment. Fast forward a decade to 2020, and its power gets a major boost to include women's property rights cases. And then came 2022, when a huge legal amendment just blew the doors open on the definitions of who and what it protects. And believe me, that 2022 amendment was an absolute game changer. It was a recognition that, hey, the workplace today isn't just some traditional office building. Our whole economy is changing, and the law needed to change with it to protect people. And just look who is now protected because of that. The definition of an employee now covers freelancers, gig workers, and domestic workers. It even includes students and artists. This one change brought massive parts of the modern workforce under the protection of the law, many of them for the very first time. So, we have a system that's accessible, and its mandate is growing. But here's the million-dollar question: does it actually make a difference? Now we're going to look at the real-world impact. The sources we looked at describe FOSPA's biggest achievement with this really powerful phrase: breaking the silence. This isn't just about processing paperwork and closing cases. It's about changing a whole culture. It's about empowering people to finally speak up, knowing they'll be heard and taken seriously. And you can literally see that change in action right here. In its early years, FOSPAH was handling maybe 40 cases a year. Today, that number is closer to 900. That is a monumental leap. And it doesn't just mean there's more harassment. It signals a massive growth in trust. More and more people believe in the system, and they're willing to use it. And the impact isn't just about case numbers. Get this: since it got the power to handle women's property rights, FOSPAH has successfully recovered property worth billions of rupees. That's not just a number on a page. That's a tangible, life-changing result, turning a legal right into actual, owned property for women who have been denied it. Now, an institution this effective doesn't just happen by accident, right? It's built by real people, by dedicated leaders. So let's take a quick look at the people who have really shaped FOSPAH's legacy and its progress. And the leadership has been truly remarkable. The very first ombudsperson, Masarat Halali, she went on to become a Supreme Court judge, which set this incredibly high bar for legal credibility right from the start. Then you had Kashmala Tariq, a former parliamentarian who used her platform to make sure everybody knew FOSPAH existed and what it could do. And the current ombudsperson, Fawzia Vakar, is a renowned women's rights expert, carrying on that legacy of powerful, expert-driven leadership. So we'll end with this thought. The story of FOSPAH really shows what can happen when you intentionally design a legal system to be fast, free, and focused. It builds trust. And that leads to the final question we should all probably be thinking about. When our institutions earn that kind of trust, who else in all the other parts of society is finally empowered to speak up?